Ronnie, and I am here today with Katherine Sayson. And I want to give you guys a little bit of background about her. She's amazing. We just had a brief discussion. She's amazing, and I really love her energy. So I'll give you a brief background about Catherine, and then we will hop into an amazing discussion about overfunctioning, which a lot of us as women we do. And I've heard a lot of your conversations about this, and so I can't wait for us to dive into this today. Catherine is a certified life mastery consultant, speaker, and transformational coach who helps women create lives they genuinely love living. I love that. With over 10 years of experience, she supports high achieving individuals in gaining clarity, building confidence, and breaking through the patterns that keep them stuck so they can step into their next level with purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Welcome to the podcast, Catherine. How are you today?
I am doing fabulous. I just couldn't ask for a better way to start the day.
Nice. I love that. Let's hop into a little bit of your background. I would love to know, how did you get started helping high achieving individuals in the work that you're doing?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. You know,
Mhm.
I I know that you're a high achieving individual, and I think I am too. That's
Mhm.
basically what is the foundation of what we're going to be talking about. And so, in my 40s, after our business had collapsed, I decided to go back to school and become a chartered accountant in Canada. Yes, and
Nice.
of course, that was one of the approved positions or professions in my family. But
Mhm.
on paper, I think I looked successful, but underneath there was this pattern of, being the dependable one. I have 3 kids, so we love to be known as supermom, superwoman. Can you
Mhm.
relate?
Mhm.
So, but even being superwoman, underneath really was this thing that I was trading my time, my energy, my voice for approval and belonging. Now, we all want to belong, right? But actually, I think I was just doing my best to try to fit in. Now,
Mhm.
fitting in is not the same as belonging. See, with fitting in, you feel like you always have to be earning it. But with belonging, you know that you just belong. You don't have to earn it. And so that was part of my awakening. And then I found myself mentoring others, just informally. And then I decided, well, this has been so worthwhile. As you say, I love to see women reclaim themselves, rediscover, and have joy and purpose in their life. So then I
Yeah.
became certified as a life mastery consultant and as a life coach. And I've been loving it. And then I got retired. Now, retirement was actually not the ending, but the beginning of my
Mhm.
awakening. I was able to see my patterns. You can live your life, the same life, 70 years, 70 times, and reach 70 years old. Or you can live each day differently. So they say that experience is the best teacher, but that's not
Mhm.
true, Ronnie. It's not experience that's the best teacher, it's evaluated experience that teaches us and brings us wisdom. And so that's how I got started in this field, noticing the patterns from my own life and then helping other women, most of them capable and high achieving, and yet feeling this sense of exhaustion, wondering, is there more? And that's how I got started, and I love it.
Nice. I like what you said about evaluating your own life. That
Mhm.
is, I've never looked at it in that way, and so I like that you said that, and I love that you're doing that for other women because I don't think sometimes we take the time to really evaluate our lives in terms of where we are and how far we've come. Um, and then for some of us who have done that, we don't always give ourselves credit
Right.
in terms of how far we have come. And so I think, yeah, I can't wait to dive into this discussion today. It's amazing. I don't want to go too far ahead, but it's amazing. So
Well, I
I
want to
know we're
give
going
credit where credit is due.
to,
That came
okay.
from John Maxwell. I got
Yeah.
certified with the John Maxwell, and I don't know if you know him.
Nice.
I love
Uh
John
huh.
Maxwell. Yes. So, anyway, so
Yeah.
he was my first coaching teacher. Yes. Love it.
Nice. I love so many people who go through his courses. I have a friend who went through his course and it just changed her life tremendously. And I was like, Girl, I need to do that. I got a a coaching certification in something else, but I was like, I really love the outcomes that I see individuals showcase that go through his program. So
Mhm.
yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, well, a lot about overfunctioning in women. And good Lord, a lot of us do this. I am definitely guilty of it myself. So I would love to know, like, what does overfunctioning actually look like for women on a day-to-day basis?
Wow. You know what? It's just so normal that we hardly even notice it. And so we don't even
Hmm.
call it overfunctioning. But what overfunctioning actually is, it's it's feeling that we have to carry more than what's really ours to carry. And so then that overload starts to wear on us. And so overfunctioning is doing all these things that are, they look like they're caring because we think
Hmm.
that caring means carrying, carrying
Hmm.
responsibility, carrying things that can make the situation better. We are nurturers. You know this as a woman.
Hmm.
That's our gift is to care. And yet when we equate caring with carrying, then we think, well, if I care more, then I'm going to carry more. But when we look underneath, there's actually this undercurrent of fear, fear that things will fall apart, fear that if we make a mistake, we won't be enough, fear of what we look like. So that's the undercurrent of the overfunctioner. And what it looks
Hmm.
like, you know what? I think that there's three main types or buckets that I
Hmm.
see. There is the one who holds it all together. There is the one who can't rest, and there is the one who quietly disappears. Let me give you an example. The one who holds it all together. I think perhaps this is the one you might identify or resonate most with.
How did you know? Because I was gonna come and ask you about that. So I'm gonna let you continue.
Well, just look at everything you have to do. You're looking here, you're looking there, you got your notes, you got to click this on. Not that that's
Yeah.
over functioning, but that just says that you are totally capable, competent, a high achiever, a high capacity woman. And so it's natural. Now, over
Hmm.
functioning isn't a flaw. Okay, just know that. It's
Hmm.
actually a brilliant survival technique, right? That's how the world functions. That's how we help things get along. But it's what happens when we're not aware of it and when it starts to eat
Hmm.
away at us that it becomes the problem. So for the overly responsible person, this is the one who holds it together. Maybe you can relate to this. You know, you're doing
Hmm.
your work and then you just notice out of the corner of your eye, oops, that's not getting done. Oops, that's going to fall through the cracks. And if you have any kids, oops, they're not getting their homework done.
Hmm.
That you just step in. You are so
Hmm.
capable. You know how to step in and you do things. You send the message, you connect the dots, you follow up, and voila, it all works. So then that means that, whoa, I did my job. Look, I was a proactive leader. But what is underneath, Ronnie? Underneath, I'm not saying this for you, but I'm saying this for me and many of the women that I've worked with. It's this quiet belief that if I don't do it, it won't get done or it won't get done
Hmm.
properly. And since the buck stops here, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, the buck
Hmm.
stops here. So we have to make sure it gets done. And it's just so much easier if I do it because I know how. And so, yes, it looks like responsibility. And the thing is, it's valued and it's rewarded. So we learn to be quick, right? We want those
Hmm.
values to be noticed. We want the reward to come, to be compensated. So we get quick in noticing problems, jumping in, managing things, doing more. But there is a difference. There's a difference between being responsible for what is yours and
Hmm.
quietly taking responsibility for what was never yours to carry. See, one creates true responsibility for what's yours to carry. It creates
Hmm.
strength and stability. But if we carry things that aren't ours to carry, it creates pressure and we feel like everything depends on us. Can I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
Okay, I have this as an accountant. We have
Hmm.
so much to do. I mean,
Hmm.
we are always busy, right? And we're always working late hours at month end, quarter end, year end, taxes. So
Yeah.
we just seem like we're always there. Well, I have this friend, we'll call her Cheryl. She's also a
Mhm.
high level accountant, and she found herself at the office at 8 p.m. She gets this phone call. It's her mother in law. Her mother in law was babysitting her kids. And the mother in
Mhm.
law said, "Hey, Cheryl, are you ready to come home?" And she said, "Oh, well, I don't think I need to bring the kids anywhere. And, I just need to get this done. I'll be home in a little bit." And then the mother in law said, "Well, it's your daughter's birthday." Now, in that culture, and the child was young, they didn't have lavish parties all the time, but
Mhm.
they always honored a birthday with cake. And she had just plumb forgotten. It wasn't that she was neglectful or careless, it was just that she was so busy that something sacred slipped. And that's inevitable. Something is going to slip. I've made
Yeah.
mistakes and then beat myself up for it because I was just so overloaded. Maybe you can relate to this, right?
Mhm.
And so know that overfunctioning always starts with responsibility,
Yeah.
not with neglect. And so that's the one kind of overfunctioner. And the thing is that that's not the only way we show up. There are
Mhm.
two others, right? There's the one who can't rest, and then there is the one who quietly disappears. Do you want me to tell you about them?
I would love to know about them, and I have a follow-up question for you related to these. So yes, please share.
Okay. The one who can't rest. This is the one
Mhm.
who says, "Oh man, everything is in place. I can finally rest. There's no
Mhm.
urgency, there's no immediate deadline." And so you go on vacation maybe. But you feel restless. Like, "Oh, I might be missing out." So they're always texting,
Yeah.
"Is there anything happening? Is there anything happening?" They just can't relax. They feel anxious. And then maybe they even feel that I haven't really earned this much rest. I need to prove something. I need to do something more. So they check their emails while they're on vacation. Let me tell you
Mhm.
about this vacation that we were on. So we were a
Mhm.
family. We're in Hawaii. You would think,
Mhm.
wow, that's like paradise. Do you like Hawaii?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think Houston is also a wonderful place to have a vacation in.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're on this holiday, but we left when there was a snowstorm just about to hit our hometown.
Okay.
So we're there and we're feeling a little guilty that we're having so much fun. We're sending all these pictures. And then we get news that this snowstorm has started to cause ice to damage certain parts of the property. And one of the cousins, we'll call him Jerry, he's on the
Mhm.
phone all the time. We're supposed to be having all this fun and adventure. And he's like checking in, checking in. And I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
you can't be at two places at one time." So we
Mhm.
contact the neighbors and go, "How serious is this? Because we are going to put Jerry on an airplane so he can go home and help you guys out." Do you know what they said? They
What did
said,
they say?
"Oh, no, 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 no. Jerry has worked hard. He needs that vacation with you. Plus, if he comes back, he just might get in the way. We've got everything handled." So that is the overfunctioner who just can't rest. And
Mhm.
then there's the one who quietly disappears. And Ronnie, this one is more subtle because this person has been focusing on everybody else. They know what everybody else needs, they know what the situation needs. They're truly other focused, so
Mhm.
much so that they start to minimize their own needs and they actually become detached from their needs. Like they don't think they need anything because they've lost touch with who they really
Yeah.
are. And so they're just like so focused. And so when somebody says, "Hey, do you need anything?" Well, that just sounds like a weird question. So they just go, "Well, no, I'm fine. Whatever you guys want to do is fine with me."
Mhm.
Now, the thing is, this can look like kindness. We love kindness, don't we? You love kind people. You
Mhm.
probably
Mhm.
are one of those kind, responsible
Mhm.
people. You're thoughtful, you're very accommodating, and you're easy to work with, right?
Mhm.
But there is a difference between extending kindness and consistently setting yourself aside in order to maintain that relationship, that connection. So the thing is that one comes from fullness, the other comes from this fear. Remember, I said there's this undercurrent of fear
Mhm.
of losing or disrupting connection if you speak up that you have this need. So you
Yeah.
want to be kind all the time. And over time, that kind of kindness, well, it becomes a quiet self abandonment. So that's what I found, that these women, they're over functioning, but it's
Mhm.
more than a behavioral pattern. It's actually rooted in how we see ourselves, not just what we're doing, but why we feel the need to do it. Okay,
Mm. I love that. I have a question for you.
sure.
As you were talking, it made me think about some parts of myself and also some parts of women that I know. Um, can women fall into two of these categories?
Oh, maybe even all three.
Hmm.
They kind of run together, right? Like you've
Yeah.
seen how a responsible person is often a kind person. They're not being
Hmm.
responsible out of neglect. They're doing it because they care, but
Yeah.
they equate caring with carrying. And so they carry too much. You can never care too much, but you can carry too much.
Yeah. And I agree with that. You did call me out on the first one. I was like, yes, that's me. You weren't supposed to figure that out. But I can also relate to a little bit of the woman who can disappear sometimes. I
Hmm.
remember when I was in my early 40s, and I remember being in this leadership position, and what caused me to start to fade a little bit was being in meetings and being mid sentence, and I would go completely blank, not aware that I was going through, perimenopause. Of course, I was dealing with brain fog, I was dealing with anxiety, I was dealing with all of these things, and it caused me to shrink and to quietly disappear,
Hmm.
um, which wasn't who I was. I didn't feel like myself anymore. And I know a lot of women whose stories I hear who they feel the same way. They are this woman, they're vibrant, and they're kind of like the first woman you described, somewhat of the second one. The second woman you described reminds me of my mother a lot. Um, but they're one of those two, but then life changes, hormones get in the way, things happen, especially during midlife. And then sometimes they feel like they can be more of that third woman now. They feel like
Mm.
they lose themselves. And so that was my purpose for asking that question. Can we have a combination of these things? Or also, have you seen some women just go from one of these steps and they just completely moved into the other? And if so, what were some of the reasons that you noticed them shift into another category?
It all depends on what they think is the need for the
Mm-hmm.
moment, because that's where their focus is. They are trying to address needs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if the need for the moment is for them to be more quiet, to lose themselves into service, maybe their
Mm-hmm.
energy is a little bit lower. Maybe they feel that that's where the reward is. And for mothers and grandmothers,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do, is we start to just focus on helping everybody become the best that they can be. There's nothing wrong with that intrinsically, but it's what is driving it that differentiates whether or not it's life-giving or if it's soul-sucking and draining. And if I could just share a little bit of my story, like I I am a chronic overfunctioner.
Mm-hmm.
I think many of us are. And like in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not an alcoholic, but you first have to admit what your tendencies and
Mm-hmm.
urges are in order to become aware of it so that you can notice it in the moment. Now, I was one of 7 kids, so naturally, we're all vying for attention. And in order to fit in, we have to find our place. And so we see that, we've experienced that, and we help others find their place. And so for me, finding my place meant being helpful, agreeable, reliable, almost disappearing from who I really was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's the third type of overfunctioner. And then I realized that, you know what? I I want to belong. I want to belong. And like I said, there's a difference between fitting in and belonging. But like also, it's a brilliant strategy because it followed me into my adulthood. And by wanting to fit in and belong and serve, I was able to compete in a male dominated environment. And for many women, even in their 40s, they have a lot of experience under their belt. And they see that there is this pressure to perform. And so they can either become overly responsible so that they can't even rest while they're on vacation. But like you say, it's easy to shrink, to defer
Mhm.
to the one who you're trying to please. So there is that balance. Am I going to be really responsible? I can be responsible and yet be subservient. And so
Yeah.
there is that over responsibility and quietly shrinking in order to fit in. And underneath is always the subtle belief that my value is tied to what I can do. That's misplaced worth. Or my value is tied to how well I can show up for others, for my family, for my friends, for my employers, my boss, people I admire, showing up
Mhm.
for them. And that is actually misaligned sense of belonging. So our worth and belonging work together to determine or define how we show up as an overfunctioner until we can break that.
Yeah. So what does it cost us? Because on the outside looking in, someone can say, you look like you have it together, right? And for a lot of women, we may hear that often. But what is it actually costing us when we operate from a place of overfunctioning?
Oh, it costs us a lot. We don't realize it. See, after all
Mm-hmm.
those years of working, I retired. And the thing is, Ronnie, they hired 3 people to replace me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could think, oh man, I feel so validated. Look at how much work I did. But actually, what it did was open my eyes to realizing how much I had been carrying that was never mine to carry alone. And that's where you can start to see the costs. People say, well, I feel burnt out. I have this emotional stress. These are symptoms of the cost. I think there's 4 main costs. I'll call one the bottleneck. And then there's the quiet room. There is the
Mm-hmm.
exhaustion, which is the most visible that we see in tie to overfunctioning. And the
Mm-hmm.
fourth one is probably the most subtle, but has the most pervasive impact. And that is the generational impact.
Mm-hmm.
So the first cost, bottlenecks, like what does that mean? Well, because you're so competent, you easily become the go to person. Maybe you have the title, the position, and everybody comes to you to make decisions. And then you start to feel that, yes, it's my responsibility to make sure that everything is done properly. So they all come to you. And what happens is that you see this line going out the door. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yes,
oh, I got to make an
absolutely.
appointment to see Ronnie because she doesn't have time for me right now. Maybe I can text her, but she's got her phone on mute,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So then you become the bottleneck because you've equated that you have to carry this all, that everything depends on you. Not really, but you want to make sure everything does. And so then what happens is you start creating this space, not you,
Mhm.
me. I start creating the space where people just start to rely on me, defer to me. It's actually easier. Oh, she's got all the answers already. Why bother? And so, what actually that does is that instead of people rising with us, then
Mhm.
they start to mute their creativity, their ideas, and their contribution. And the room goes quiet. There's no longer so much chatter about this is what I can do, this is what I can do, because hey, I'm going to decide anyway. So it's like, okay, you just tell us what we're going to do. That's easier. So that's the
Mhm.
quiet room. Now, because we're carrying so much, what happens is our body keeps the score. Maybe you've read that book. The
Mhm.
body is always tracking. So it shows up physically as strain, maybe even chronic illnesses that we haven't tied to our exhaustion, fogginess in the brain because we're carrying too much. Emotionally, there's stress and
Mhm.
strain So much so, Ronnie, and this is the sad part, is that I found this. We become a disservice to the very ones we're trying to serve because we've just
Yes.
run out of energy and steam. And then sometimes we can even ask, why am I carrying all this? Why am I doing all this? But that's a good question, right? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one is the generational impact. We don't recognize that what we do has long term effects outside of our own life. I'll tell you a quick story. Like, I remember one day we were running late again because I had this habit. I call it the one more syndrome. I just have one more thing to do, one more task, one more errand,
Yes.
just one more thing. Like, let me just put the laundry in
Yes.
there before we run out the door. So, of course, we're starting to run late. And
Mm-hmm.
as we do that, there is tension rising in the car. And somebody says, you know, if you hadn't tried to do that one more thing, we wouldn't be late. And of course, the thoughtful mom says, well, if you had just helped me, we would have gotten
Mm-hmm.
it all done quicker, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then we arrive a little late, a little tense, a little strained, but we do what many of us know how to do. We get out of the car and we paste a smile on our face. Oh, everything is just fine. But you know what? On the drive home, I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw our kids. They were quiet and they were watching. They were watching us, and that's when it hit me. They were watching what we were doing and they were learning how to be responsible, what that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
what it looks like when pressure arises, and how to respond with a smile when things don't go smoothly. And the thing is, it wasn't just about being late. I realized what we were doing was we were modeling something. Because when we tend to be overfunctioning, it affects the environment around
Mm-hmm.
us. People are always watching. And then they carry that same pattern because they think it's noble. Hey, if this is how Ronnie behaves, if this is how Catherine is, and she's our leader, then I guess that's how we're supposed to be. And the cycle
Yeah.
continues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. I see it in the workplace a lot with CEOs, and um, they're often wondering why things are a certain way or why other leaders are not as, communicative as they should be. But then I'm thinking they're watching you. You're the leader. They're working directly with you. So they're going to mimic exactly what you do. And if you're not communicating effectively, you can't have that same expectation from them.
Right.
And thankfully, I'm able to have those type of conversations with some CEOs. But I don't think a lot of people fully understand how many people are actually watching you. And sometimes you're a leader to some folks, even when that's not the space you want to be in. You're like, I don't ask to be that. But people they look up to you. And there's like, I admire this person. And kind of feel like that puts a little bit of a different layer of, um, I'm not going to say necessarily stress, but maybe pressure on
Pressure.
us to show up a certain way too, because we know like there are so many people that admire us, whether they say it or um, sometimes you can recognize it if you're in a room with them and how they look at you and how they respond to you. And but I feel like that's a different pressure that you don't ask for, and it's almost like I can't. How do you make like you're human, we make mistakes, and it's almost like you don't want to make one in front of these people who admire you, but at the same time you're like, but you have to see that I make mistakes too. But there's a layer of pressure there. Would you agree? Or um yeah, would you agree with that?
The pressure is felt by a typical overfunctioner.
I'm guilty. I need some work. I need work.
No, you don't need work. You just need to release, Ronnie. Let me tell you an example. So here I am. I'm a trusted person, a trusted, valuable person who's supposed to be taking care of everything. And I wake up one morning and I have this sick feeling in my stomach. I
Mm-hmm.
had just missed a property tax deadline and it
Mm.
costs the company so much money. Like, man, how could I do that? How could I be so careless? Why didn't I put certain measures in place? I made a big mistake. Now it cost them money, but it cost me emotional strain. But I felt like I was losing my reputation too. And that's where the pressure is. When we think that we are not allowed to make mistakes, that we have to carry everything, that's where our value is. That's why we belong, and that they'll let me go if I make such a big mistake. But you know, the beautiful thing is that the board gave me grace. It was almost
Nice.
like them exhaling and saying, Hugh, you made a mistake. That
Mm-hmm.
gives us permission to make mistakes too. Now, you'll probably be the first person that if somebody on your team makes a mistake, even if it's a costly one, unless it's really a bad one that they did intentionally, you won't fire them because you recognize that there's value in them. You will work with
Mm-hmm.
them, you will extend grace, and then your team will become more of a trusted space.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we build trust, is by being
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and honest and not feeling that everybody has to hold it together because what we model, we duplicate.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a sometimes it's like this feeling of when you're able to just let it go, you feel like you can just exhale a little bit. Um and I remember back in March, I was just juggling so many things. So I've been traveling back and forth, caring for my mom, then I had to go to a conference and I had to prepare for the conference because I was actually speaking at the conference. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't spoken in like 2 years. I have not done this. So I was like tough on myself. And then I was also dealing with like all of these other things that's going on as well. And so it was in that moment where I had to like learn what my capacity was. And I felt like I had to like, I got to exhale. I have to let things go. And so I found myself having to really not operate from this over functioning place and start putting some boundaries there.
Mhm.
Um, and what I noticed is when I started putting the boundaries in place, there were people, even some of these same people, who they didn't like that very much.
Mhm.
Um, but I had to, for me at that moment, it was like, this is my capacity. Like I was struggling. And it's hard. You're watching a mom that's declining, and then you're trying to, do these other things too. You're building this business. It's a lot on you to carry, and you're still trying to keep this smile on your face and show up like everything's okay. But even with doing that, it costs us something,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so I'm wondering, just from you, what does this cost us in terms of like growth when it comes to like life, career? I know we talked about burnout, which is very real. And I do, be honest, I do feel like I am in a space of burnout, and I've been trying to shift, like move through it. Um, but what does this cost us just living in this space of being, over functioning?
Well, when you talk about the working environment, it costs us a
Mm-hmm.
lot. See, because being responsible is not a flaw.
Mm-hmm.
Over functioning well, functioning from your actual core, your deep capacity, is
Mm-hmm.
actually what people desire, right? It's when we take on too much that we become a disservice, where
Mm-hmm.
overfunctioning actually stunts our progress.
Yeah.
Not only, like, remember I talked about the quiet room. The quiet room is where you think you have to do it all, you have to manage all. You actually end up micromanaging, or you just don't feel that you can delegate. So then there is this lack of trust,
Mm-hmm.
rather than believing that what you're entrusted with is not so much the outcome as it is the people that you are entrusted with. This is what I think leadership is. Leadership is influence. That's what John Maxwell teaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
everything you're doing, you are influencing by the way you are behaving, showing up, believing, speaking, treating other people, treating yourself. You are influencing others. Now, when we influence others, we have to ask ourselves, am I doing it from a place of love or from a place
Mhm.
of fear? Because if I
Mhm.
really love them, love creates space. It creates space and safety. And where there
Mhm.
is safety, then other people feel safe enough to pitch in, to
Mhm.
collaborate, to raise their hands,
Mhm.
to help. And receiving help is not weakness, it is
At all,
actually
yeah.
sharing, it's respect, it's mutual respect and trust. And so when
Yeah.
we operate from that place of love, it grows, it expands not only your leadership, but what the organization is able to do. But when we
Mhm.
operate out of fear, where we're self protecting, wondering, how is this going to get me forward? How am I going to look? That's fear. Fear is very
Mhm.
contractive, very constrictive. That doesn't help anybody. Then people start
Right.
being afraid. And so the thing is to remember that when you're operating from this motive of, I am using my business to build people, I don't use people to build my business, then you
Mhm.
realize I am stewarding the very people that have been brought into my ecosystem, my environment, my sphere
Mhm.
of influence. And that's how you
Yeah.
know whether or not you're over functioning, or your responsibility or your helpfulness and your
Yeah.
caring is a positive, is an asset, or a liability. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, every time you mention overfunctioning, what keeps popping up in my mind is this need for control. And I know you talked about it being something deeper. And one of the things I've noticed in a lot of my work with women is the one thing that stands out the most is there's this constant need for control. And that control creates anxiety. I see it a lot in women. Um, and you talked about it being a little bit of something deeper too, but would you say control is tied into those other things related to fear and some of those other underlining issues that you mentioned earlier?
Yes, actually, fear is the basis of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
We control
Mm-hmm.
because we're afraid of what's going to happen. We control because we have equated our value with doing and carrying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's where your value is, it's going to affect your thoughts. So there is
Mm-hmm.
this path of how we go from what we believe, why we believe, our why,
Mm-hmm.
to the results we have. So it starts
Mm-hmm.
with the belief. And then it moves into our thinking, our thoughts. And then it moves into how we feel, which then, when we generate those feelings, it moves us to action, to our
Mm-hmm.
behavior, which, when repeated, becomes a pattern, which then creates our results. That
Mm-hmm.
is the formula of either success or failure. It starts with our beliefs. So if we believe
Yeah.
everything depends on us, because no, actually, we believe that our worth is tied to what we do,
Yes.
then we will feel that we have to be responsible. We will think, I need to maintain control. And we will feel this urgency to always make sure that everything is done right. And then we will
Yes.
behave like that. We will behave by controlling other people, and it
Mm-hmm.
develops into a pattern. And the
Mm-hmm.
result is the costs that we talk about,
Yeah.
burnout, feeling sometimes excluded. It's like, oh, she's coming into the room. Make sure that what you're doing is what she expects, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one that's alienating yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that's breaking down the trust in your team by your
Mm-hmm.
overly controlling behavior, which is actually rooted in fear,
Yeah. I
in
agree.
self doubt. Yeah.
I agree with that. And one of the things that I always teach a lot of the women that I work with is a lot about thought reframing, Um, and they're always shocked when we just kind of walk through certain exercises to teach them how to reframe those thoughts and how to be present in the moment and reminding them you can't control the situation. And sometimes we have this life that we've created in our mind for ourselves and we feel like we have to stick to that script, and we don't. and life is going to go sometimes whichever way is going to go, and we have to make sure that we're flexible enough to follow that path. And so some of them, they like it, and some of them are just like, I can't accept that. I can't accept it because this is the life I created. But I'm like, it might be what you created, but just because you created that path, it doesn't mean that that's the way life is going to go, But how
Ah,
do we become flexible to, the unknown, the what is, and reframe our thought patterns around it? And so I've been able to be pretty successful with women in that area. But yeah, it is a struggle for a lot of them. And so even for those who are listening to this episode or will likely listen to like the replay of this, they're probably thinking, okay, I fall into one of those three categories that Catherine has said. How do I begin to make the shift to move forward and break these patterns of overfunctioning?
that's a great question. And it first starts with awareness. Okay,
Hmm.
you do these great exercises, and I love that you do these thought reframing exercises with your team.
Hmm.
If I could coach you a little bit, I would invite
Hmm.
you to go back one step further to
Hmm.
something more intrinsic, and that is their belief. Because
Yeah.
it is from our beliefs that where our thinking arises. Okay.
Hmm.
And so when we, if we say, start with that framework, when we realize that we are doing too much, then we can start to shift. And the shift happens, the shift out of overfunctioning always starts with being aware of it. And that's why the symptoms are so beautiful. It's good that we
Hmm.
feel the pain. It's good that we feel the friction. It's good that we realize, hey, I can't control the past.
Yeah.
I can learn from it, and it doesn't have to
Hmm.
define my future. I
Hmm.
can't even control the future because it hasn't
Hmm.
come yet. So why am I going to give my energy to something out there that I can't control? And the only thing I can do is I can control my present moment, the nice,
Yeah.
beautiful, magnificent now. So when you stay in the present, it kind of frees you from having to control. And we can't control
Hmm.
other people. Oh, we can try to control, but if we're trying to
Absolutely.
control other people to do what they don't want to do, there is a word for that. It's called manipulation,
Hmm.
right? And we don't want to make other people feel manipulated or like a victim of our control. So we have to start with ourselves. And it starts here, our belief. And
Hmm.
our belief basically is, hey, why am I trying to earn this, right? If I believe that my value comes from how much I carry, then of course I'm going to overfunction. But what if, what if this beautiful truth is that my worth was never something that I had to earn?
Hmm.
It's something that was given to me by God. And, um,
Hmm.
and that means that I can live from that basis. So it's
Yeah.
not the putting the cart before the horse. What's driving it is our security in who we are, remembering
Yeah.
who we are. So if we believe that I am already worthy, I am already enough, then the thought is that, wow, I can enjoy today. I can live from this abundance. Even if
Hmm.
things don't look like, they're flowing, I just have this moment. I can live
Yeah.
as much and express as much love and be my full self in this moment. I can bring that forward so I can feel secure. I can feel confident that I'm here on purpose and for a purpose, that I have been entrusted with these people, with this business, with these ideas. I'm entrusted with that. And so when you have this feeling, then you behave differently, right? You
Hmm.
behave by first allowing yourself to notice it. And when you notice, oh, I am giving into this urge to overachieve, I can pause. You have agency.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have agency. And that is a beautiful thing. So we pause and we ask ourselves, is this mine to carry? That's the shift. Ronnie.
Yeah.
That's the shift. As soon as we pause and ask that question, is this mine to carry? Then
Mhm.
we can respond. Well, if it's not mine to carry, or maybe it is mine to carry, but not all of it,
Mhm.
maybe we can respond a little bit differently. Maybe we can start to delegate. Maybe we can let things happen and see what happens. And maybe the consequence isn't as bad as we had envisioned or imagined. And maybe we can let other people rise to the occasion. Maybe we can give other people permission to not be so perfect. So
Mhm.
then the result is that there is peace, there is
Yeah.
trust. And so I guess on a practical, I mean, it's deep and it's practical. So maybe practically, I'd say maybe think of 4 steps: notice, ask, remember, and then choose. So you notice, oh, what's happening? Am I just about ready to step in, to fix, to carry more than what's mine? Am I just ready to say automatically, yes, I'll do that?
Mhm.
Like you probably
Mhm.
love helping people. They go, hey, Ronnie, can you do this? For sure, because you know how. But you forgot to
Mhm.
look at your calendar. And that's really what we've done is we've forgotten our capacity. We've forgotten who we
Mhm.
are. But our capacity is not so small. It is small, but it can grow as we learn to operate from this place of abundance.
Yeah.
Because you were made in God's image, you know that. Okay, so we
Mhm.
notice first and we pause, and then we ask, is this mine to carry? And when we ask that question, it's really powerful because then we can remember who we are. We can remember, who am I being if I do all this? Who am I
Yeah.
actually showing up as? I don't have to prove my worth. That's what we remember. We remember we're already worthy, we're already proven, we're already enough. Now, it's not behavior modification. It's alignment with what we believe. I'm a woman of faith, as you might have noticed. So I feel deeply connected with believing who we are, who God says you
Mhm.
are. You're already
Exactly.
chosen, you're already
Yeah.
loved unconditionally, and you're already enough. So if you knew that you were already enough, that your worth was settled, you would have probably more courage to do things
Mhm.
because you wouldn't be afraid of failing. There is no
Right.
such thing as failure unless we let it stop us.
Right.
Failure is feedback. And when we see failure as a stepping stone and as feedback, well, then we're not so afraid to make a mistake. And then we can
Mhm.
choose. That's where we choose differently. And that's what we call alignment.
I love that. I love it. There are some women that's gonna act like, but it gets uncomfortable when you're starting to make these shifts, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, how can women deal with the discomfort that comes with making this change?
Ah, well, you said 2 powerful words. You said
Mhm.
discomfort and change. Ronnie, you are brilliant. I don't know if you've already. We are comfortable in our comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so there is no discomfort if we stay the same. And the
Yeah.
thing is, our survival brain, it has one goal, and that is to keep
Mhm.
us safe and to keep us protected,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Mhm.
going to give us all these reasons why not to change.
Right.
Change is the unknown. Change is the unknown. So as soon as you start feeling this discomfort, and it's not a symptom of overfunctioning, but it is a symptom of, I'm going to change. Not everybody's going to like my change. They're going to feel
Mhm.
that, oh, who are you? Why are you doing this? Now we have to pull in our weight and,
Mhm.
all this stuff. It means that you are on the edge of a miracle. You are on
Mm.
the edge of the unknown. You're on the edge of becoming something greater. So ask yourself before you make the change or what change you're going to make, is this change that I'm going to make, does it give me life? Is it something I would love if I could see the other side of it? To have that peace of no longer overfunctioning? And does it honor my highest potential?
Mhm.
If you can say yes to that, then the discomfort, well, welcome it. Once
Yeah.
you break through, there will be more discomfort because, like I said, our survival brain wants to keep us safe. Plus, those neuronal pathways, they have been so ingrained. Like you say, we have been programmed. We've been doing this for so long. That cycle
Hmm.
is ingrained. Now, there's only
Yeah.
so much neuronal glue so that if you're going to start developing new neural pathways,
Yeah.
some old ones are going to have to die. They don't want to
Hmm.
die. So they're going to scream like it's bloody murder, like you are dying yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
But just know that if you can see what your future can be as the woman who was created to be full, abundant, confident, and at peace, at joy, then it's worth the discomfort. And I say,
Yeah.
take the leap of faith.
Nice. I love that. I know we're coming to a close here, but for a woman who is no longer operating in that state of being just of over functioning and she feels free now, what would that look like? I know you mentioned things like being in alignment, and if this is operating in our highest, higher selves and things of that nature. But what does that actually look like for a woman? How does she look? How does she carry herself when
Mm,
she's no longer in that space?
well, that's beautiful. That is beautiful because usually for women after 40, they start
Hmm.
to have this discontent in them. I call
Hmm.
it a sacred discontent. It's their
Hmm.
inner voice, their inner child, their spirit whispering, there must be more to this. And hey, I was in my late 60s when I realized that I don't want to go to the grave with my song still in my heart. There are things
Hmm.
that we have put on the back burner. We have muted our dreams, our voice, things that we would really love to do. We've just put them aside because we thought everybody else's happiness, success was important. And at the moment, it was good. So for the
Yeah.
woman who is learning to see, well, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore, but I have been responsible. I honor you. There was nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing to regret. A dear coach of mine says that the content of your life is the curriculum for your evolution. So everything we've been through, it's our lesson plan for who we're going to be, for our evolution, our growth, the woman, our higher version, you know? And so if
Gotcha.
she can tap into that, then she will not only have joy, but she will have peace. She will have freedom to reconnect with what those old dreams are. She will have
Yeah.
freedom and confidence to use her voice more clearly because now she knows I don't have to be earning, proving, serving, and forgetting who I am. I can
Yeah.
remember who I am. And that is the basis of her true confidence and joy. She can walk into a room and say, I know why I'm here. I have a purpose. And if
Hmm.
she's unclear about her purpose, well, I'm happy to help her because that's what we do. We hold a lantern so you can see where you're going. We hold a mirror so you can see your brilliance. And we give you space so that you can start to think clearly about, is this the life I'm meant for? What more is there for me? And so think of it as a woman on an adventure. Everybody wants
Hmm.
to go on an adventure. The
Yeah.
adventure will have a lot of unknown. So, yes, there will be times where she will say, I don't know if I did the right thing. Should I turn back? But would you want to go back there? Or would you want to go
Right.
forward, knowing that life is pulling you forward? You are the declarative expression of life and love. And so let love come through you. Fall in love with yourself. Enjoy the things. Go barefoot and go for that horseback ride. Go for, and
Hmm.
that walk on the beach. Do the things you love to do, knowing that the world isn't going to fall apart just because you're having fun. You will have fun
Yes.
in your life. I promise you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those wise words with us. It just made me think about something I started doing lately. I created this bucket list of all of this stuff I wanted to do, but I closed the journal and just left it there. And so recently I decided to start um, doing those things on the list. So I've been reaching out and I want to, let me do golf lessons. Let me go here and try this place. Even if I have to do it alone, I'm going to go do it. And I noticed just a shift there when I started being proactive and incorporating these things into my life because I can work, 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 and there's no time for fun and joy. And then I'm like, I'm burnt out, but I don't have any balance in my life, is what I've noticed too. And so it did come with this place where, okay, you have to know what your capacity is for these areas, and you also have to put some self-care in your life, some fun and
Mm.
some enjoyment. And as you mentioned, go on this adventure and just try the things that you wanted to try, and then find out from there, you're going to find out exactly what you really love. So that's my journey right now. Um, and it did come with me having to just put like boundaries in place in certain areas. And I always tell women that no is a complete sentence,
Mhm.
and also to make sure that at least every day you're trying to do something for you. I don't care if it's 15 minutes, 5
Mhm.
minutes, but try to do something for yourself because you should be your top priority. And as they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. You
Absolutely.
have to make sure that your cup is always full. And so for me, I've been trying to, refill my cup because I can definitely tell, like, oh my God, burnout. I'm operating from this place, I'm operating from that place. But there is no space there for me to take time to enjoy my life. And so I thank you for your wise words today and also for being here. Yeah.
Oh, Ronnie, I love your analogy of pouring from a full cup, not an empty cup. And
Hmm.
make sure you plug the hole in your cup.
I
There
like
is a hole
that.
that is going to drain
Okay.
everything you pour in until you notice that hole. And that hole is the need to prove. That hole is our limiting beliefs that we allow to suck our life from us. And so that is your
Yeah.
no. That is your strong, beautiful, sacred boundary.
I
Notice where your
like
holes
that.
are in your cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. If for those who would love to connect with you, maybe work with you, and learn a little bit more, how can they follow you, reach out to you?
Well, I sent you some of my social media handles, but
Hmm.
an easy way is my name is Katherine. It's Kate, Kate. Call with Kate.
Nice.
Callwithkate.com. Then they can get in touch with me. Callwithkate.com. If they actually want to come into my free weekly masterclass, it's a 1 hour that I hold every week. Then we get to talk more about this, what the symptoms are, what the costs are, what the shift could look like to bring you from disappearing and being invisible to being impactful as who you were created to be. Then it's masterclasswithkate.com. So either
Nice.
way, masterclasswithkate.com or callwithkate.com.
Nice. And I'll
And
also
that's
put your
Kate with a K.
information,
Okay.
Kate with a K. Yeah, I'll also put your information in the show notes too so that they can have access to it. But I want to thank you so much for being here today and just speaking to me and to the listeners. And I've learned a lot, and I hope that they did. I know that they did. So I'm sure I'll get some emails saying how great this episode was. So I just want to thank you again for being here. And I would love to have you back at some point in the future.
Oh, my honor and my joy, Ronnie. Thank you. You are an
Yeah.
absolute delight to have a conversation with
Oh,
anytime.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, that is it for this episode of Navigating Life After 40. I hope you enjoyed this conversation just as much as I did. We will see you next time. And again, I will place Kate's information in the show notes for you so you can follow her. And I'm going to also join one of those master classes because I need it. So I will see you all soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye now.